And now it gives me great pleasure to ask Herbie Miller, the Director-Curator of the Jamaica Music Museum, to introduce Bob. If you missed the Grow Nation series that Herbie organized at the Institute of Jamaica in February, you really missed something. It was a series on Don Drummond, and I tell it was fantastic. So Herbie, keep going from strength to strength with the museum, and welcome to introduce Bob.
Give thanks, Carly. Good evening.
Good evening.
Who are Dorothy Fields, E.Y. Yip Harbour, Michelle Parrish, Julie Stein, Sammy Kahn, and Leo Robin? Between them, they have given the world perennial classics like Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend, Time After Time, A Fine Romance, April in Paris, All the Way, Sophisticated Lady, and Thanks for the Memory. There are Tin Pan Alley writers who, like Keith Anderson, existed and exists in a culture that focuses on the singer and performer. They are songwriters or lyricists whose material provides the substance that makes singers and performers famous. These lyricists provide the songs that are the staple of many of the singers who we celebrate, while the writers that contributed to their successes remain in the shadows or behind curtains, while singers and performers take bow after bow. With the exception of a few brilliant writers who also sang or sing, Paul McCartney and John Lennon of the Beatles, Bob Dylan and Curtis Mayfield, Smokey Robinson and Bob Marley, they come to mind. And those writers who sang and sing but were not considered singers as such, Hoagy Carmichael, Cole Porter and Carole King comes to mind. It is the extent to which peers, that is the artists, especially those who are recognized both by critics and fans alike, perform a writer's material that establishes and confirms that writer's preeminence. They authenticate such writers even more so when the writer, composer, is also a fine singer and performer. Leading entertainment figures in Jamaica and outside authenticate Bob Andy's abilities as singer and performer. Many authenticate Keith Anderson's prowess as composer and lyricist by producing and recording songs he has written that are now considered classics, part of the canon of songs that exemplify the writer's craft. Oh, did I say good evening? Good evening. Our guest this evening, Bob Andy, is well known and respected internationally by both industry insiders and outsiders, meaning the fans alike. That recognition and accord resulted from the fact that he is simply one of the finest and most diverse singer-songwriters this island has yet produced. Therefore, it was with humble pleasure that I accepted the invitation to introduce Bob, with whom I have the pleasure to share a close friendship, but also, and more importantly, to present to you, the audience, a friend to all, Jamaicans, and an ally dedicated to the quest for global equity and humanity. Most of us know Bob Andy as a singer and performer whose success is secure as far as making hits go. We know him as a conscious and consummate artist whose polished performances over the decades places him at the artistic pinnacle among his peers. As far as his recording career and stage performances are concerned, Bob is an artist whose ability, quality, and success is also secure at the very top. But it is as a songwriter and composer that he is most revered by industrial insiders, as well as those listeners with keen and clean ears. In fact, some even argue that when it comes to the craft of the lyricist and composer, Keith Anderson, that same Bob Andy, is unparalleled in general terms, and in particular challenged only by no other than two Bobs. When it comes to musical expression that advocates for and expresses the cultural and socio-political development of the underclass, those two Bobs are Dylan and Marley. With artists such as these three Bobs, we come to realize not all artistic expressions are merely for entertainment as such. But among the most profoundly beautiful of some of these expressions are expressions of impressions. Impressions formed through the keen observation of society. And Bob Andy is an artist whose impressions and expressions are informed by his keen observation of society, locally and globally, and expressed through both entertaining and profoundly socio-political lyrics. With that in mind, the caliber of the man I am introducing to you goes beyond an artist merely entertaining his fans. In addition to a first-rate entertainer, Bob Andy is also a cultural and socio-political iconoclast, an observer who is an open critic of the socio-economic conditions and the politics surrounding the underdevelopment of the Jamaican people, hence the country, and the breakdown of humanity nationally and internationally. Because his expression and impressions are so insightful, communicated with such clarity, conviction, and feelings, and also importantly, that his music's entertainment value is first-rate, I have the distinct honor to introduce a Jamaican at the highest artistic quality, who also strives for integrity and ethical standards of the utmost level, personally and in general. But as his talk will make clear, attaining that level of unimpeachable quality, consciousness, and successes was not without missteps and flaws. His story is an achievement by a man who, like most Jamaicans, strive for spiritual and tangible self-development and success in spite of the odds and the temptation to compromise one's integrity. Ladies and gentlemen, Bob Andy is a national treasure whose life and arts history resides above the overrated and trivial use of the term icon. In addition to his impression of what to us is a splendid career, this evening we will hear more about the man from the man himself. I therefore accept the distinction of presenting our friend, the bona fide iconoclastic Bob Andy, also known as Keith Anderson.
You might see me grimace a few times, and that is because this is one of my bad days, as a result of an operation I had on these grounds that left me botched. But I'm still going. This is the first song I recorded after I left the hospital. I'm going to ask the gentleman to play it for you. My story, I was born and I wanted a child. Daddy never wanted me, mother barely tried. I get a tender age, clothed in ignorance, drenched in rage, no one to talk to, nowhere to go, nothing to eat, nothing on my feet. I'll have to turn my life around. No, I'm no longer at the lost and found. Love rescued me. Love is sure, that's all I know. I don't need to know anything more. I was accustomed to being locked in a room for safekeeping. If my mother went to work, she would lock me in the house. Until one day she took me to her workplace. This was Up Park Camp. My mother, Jamaica, was still a colony with the colonizers living here and running the country. She worked for Colonel Johnson. And she took me to Up Park Camp, number 12. And locked me in her room, the maid's room. And I must have been banging the door out of frustration one day. Two children came around, Andrew and Sarah Johnson. Found out what was happening. I went to my mother and really gave her a good verbiage, sorting her out. And from then on, we became friends. To the extent where I spent most of my time at our camp with the children. Not just that family, but the family of the Rand people. I even went to Newcastle's on summertime where the officers went to spend their holidays. And so years after, when I was able to speak some English, having not been schooled, I figured that I must have picked this up as I was there. Because I was calling words that I didn't read or know the meaning of. At about 7, I heard my mother behind a door, struggling to give me away. And the man, I think I heard the man say, "But is he a bad boy? How could be so bad at that age?" I said, "I just don't have the time and whatever she didn't have to keep me." And so years after, when I became a runaway child, at that time I wasn't able to associate that behavior. More 2 or 3 times I've heard before I started running away, my mother trying to give me away. And one evening, while she was still working up our camp, I was about 9 years old. An elderly woman walked into the yard. No one recognized her. And she stayed until my mother came home, who was the one who recognized her. Later on, a little grip was packed for me, and this lady came to me and said, "Come here, come in with me." No one gave me any words. On the way to Westmoreland, I found out that this was Rebecca Gale, my grandmother. And I used to go to church with my mother, Rastafarian church. They weren't dreadlocks, but they were Rastafarians. And so, as you're shunted to one family member after another, you end up at whatever church they were members of. And so, I was a Methodist with my grandmother. I was Salvation Army with my grandaunt. And so my grandmother died. And my mother came from Kingston after she got the telegram to come and bury her mother. And when she went to the hospital, they told her that, oh, she must have went for the batch of people who sent only to bury. She said, what? And says we just sent some boxes with some people only to bury because the people hadn't come. And just like my mother washed me off, she had the guys at the cemetery dug about 3 bodies up. When she recognized her mother, she bathed her, put her in the coffin she brought for her. We went back to Cave District and she buried her mother. I stood at the head of the grave and I wanted to cry so badly because up to then I thought that this was the first time I was experiencing demonstrative affection. And she just went up and died.